You're standing in front of a mirror. Not just any mirror, but one that reflects more than your face. It reflects your flaws, your failures, your secret regrets. You adjust your posture. You smooth your shirt. You try to smile just right. And for a brief moment, it feels okay, presentable, almost good. But then something happens. You notice a slight unevenness in your nose, a shadow under your eyes that wasn't there yesterday, a wrinkle forming like a crack in a perfect glass. Suddenly, all you can see is what's wrong, not what's real, not what's true, just what's lacking. Now zoom out. It's no longer just your reflection. It's your Instagram feed. It's the resume you edit for hours, the texts you delete and rewrite a dozen times, the career path you hate but pursue anyway, because it looks good, the relationship you cling to out of fear that being alone might look like failure. You begin to realize you're not living anymore. You're performing. For them, for they, for some faceless jury of invisible critics who exist only in your head. A court where the verdict is never in your favor, and the sentence is always the same: not enough. And here's the twist. You're doing everything right. You wake up early. You hustle. You optimize your routines. Upgrade your habits. Read the books. Drink the green juice. Recite affirmations. You push. You strive. You climb. And still there's that whisper. Not yet. Not quite. Not perfect. But what is perfect, really? And who decided that was the goal? Why do we torture ourselves with an ideal that keeps shifting just beyond reach, like a mirage in the desert of our ambition? You scroll past someone else's success story and feel a sting in your chest. You don't even want their life. You just want to stop feeling like you're always behind, like you're running a race with no finish line. Do you ever feel that? That haunting feeling that if you just worked a little harder, looked a little better, made one more move, you'd finally be enough. But enough for what? And enough for who? Here's the great paradox. The more perfect you try to be, the more broken you feel. You wear the mask of competence, but inside you're collapsing under the weight of your own expectations. You chase success, thinking it will give you freedom, but instead it enslaves you to comparison. You pursue flawlessness, hoping it will give you peace, but it robs you of authenticity. And still we keep running, keep editing, keep filtering, keep pretending, because stopping would mean accepting ourselves as we are, and that somehow feels more terrifying than any failure. But what if the fear of imperfection isn't a personal flaw? What if it's a program installed into us by a culture obsessed with control, image, and dominance? What if the endless pursuit of perfection is not the path to greatness, but the very thing preventing it? You're not alone in this. The person next to you at work, the influencer you admire, the old friend who seems to have it all, they're all carrying this silent shame. They're all dancing in the same cage, decorated with gold bars that spell out success. But here's the thing, no one escapes unscathed. Because chasing perfection is like trying to sculpt air. You might convince yourself you're creating something beautiful, but in truth, you're only exhausting yourself trying to shape what was never meant to be held. So now the question begins to press down on your chest. If perfection is a lie, why do we still believe in it? And more importantly, how do we stop chasing it without falling apart? You're about to find out. But first, pause. If any part of this hit something deep inside you, if you felt the quiet pressure to be perfect, to perform, to prove, then you're not just watching this, you're living it. And if you want to unravel the truth and begin a different kind of journey, the kind that leads back to yourself, subscribe now, because what comes next might just change how you see everything. Let's go deeper. Why do we chase perfection? Why do we keep reaching for an image of ourselves that we never quite arrive at? To answer that, we have to go beneath the surface, beyond the daily comparisons, the highlight reels, the manicured facades. We have to descend into the darker rooms of the mind, the parts we usually keep locked away. It begins with fear, but not the kind of fear that makes you scream, the kind that whispers, quiet, constant, unnamed. It is the fear of inadequacy, of being exposed, rejected, forgotten. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely," and maybe that's the heart of it. The idea that if we stop running toward perfection, we'll have to sit with who we really are, and we're afraid that what we'll find won't be good enough. So instead, we chase illusions. Not to become more, but to hide what we believe is not enough. We become masters of disguise. We collect achievements, compliments, status symbols, not because they fulfill us, but because they shield us. They become armor against the vulnerability of simply being human. But here's the tragedy. The more we construct this image of the perfect self, the further we drift from our true self. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre spoke of bad faith, a state where individuals deceive themselves in order to avoid the anxiety that comes from true freedom and responsibility. In bad faith, we live not as who we are, but as who we believe we should be, based on external scripts. The obedient student, the flawless spouse, the high achiever, the untouchable professional. Each role promises belonging, praise, acceptance. But slowly, it robs us of something far more precious, authenticity. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote that man is not destroyed by suffering. He is destroyed by suffering without meaning. When perfection becomes our pursuit, life begins to feel like suffering without meaning, because the goalposts keep moving, and we're never allowed to rest. And this doesn't just come from within, it's reinforced by the world around us. Society is built on selling perfection. You are bombarded daily with curated lives, algorithmic standards, and photo filters so advanced they erase entire realities. You don't see the anxiety behind the smile. You don't see the nights they cried before posting that motivational quote. You only see the surface. And so you compare your insides to their outsides, and always come up short. But what if the real sickness isn't our imperfections, but our refusal to accept them? Think of it this way: nature does not strive for perfection. Trees grow in crooked lines. Rivers bend and twist. No two snowflakes are identical, and no sunset is ever exactly the same. And yet we don't stand before a forest and criticize its symmetry. We only do that to ourselves, because somewhere along the line, we started to believe that we are not part of nature. We are not allowed to simply be. We must improve. We must refine. We must optimize. Perfection became the modern religion. Self-help, the liturgy. Achievement, the altar. Arthur Schopenhauer, ever the pessimist, once observed that we forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. And perhaps perfection is the tax we pay for acceptance. We want love, but we think we must earn it. We want peace, but we believe we must prove our worth first. And this psychological trap starts young. Children, naturally curious and expressive, begin to learn that some behaviors are better, some emotions are too much, some dreams are unrealistic. So they begin to shrink parts of themselves to fit the mold, until eventually they forget where the mask ends and the face begins. And when these children become adults, they carry that inner critic like a ghost. Every not good enough from childhood becomes an echo in adulthood. When you hesitate to speak your mind at work, when you stare at your body in the mirror and wish it looked different, when you sabotage relationships because you're terrified of being truly seen. These are not flaws, they are symptoms. Symptoms of a deeper philosophical wound, one that tells you that your worth is conditional. That only when you're flawless, successful, beautiful, productive, can you be loved. But this belief, this lie, is the real enemy. Perfection is a prison disguised as paradise. It looks beautiful from the outside, glittering with praise and admiration. But inside, it's cold, lonely, and echoing with the sound of your own unmet expectations. So now the question sharpens: what happens to a soul forced to live behind glass? What happens when we've traded joy for performance, and truth for applause? We've identified the roots, the psychological scars, the philosophical indoctrination, but we haven't yet seen the full cost. Not just emotionally, but culturally. neurologically, existentially. You're about to confront the real consequences. What happens when you chase perfection long enough to forget who you are? We're about to go there. There's a strange kind of silence that comes with perfection. Not peace, not serenity. A hollow silence. It's the kind you feel when your goals are met but you're still empty. When everyone praises you but no one knows you. When you've finally made it, and yet, nothing inside feels alive. This is the cost no one talks about. The invisible damage, the soul erosion. Because perfection doesn't just demand effort, it demands sacrifice. And what we sacrifice is often everything that makes us human. Spontaneity, joy, vulnerability, connection. In neuroscience, there's a term called cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort experienced when your actions don't align with your beliefs. People chasing perfection live in a state of constant dissonance. They pretend to be fine, they perform competence, they project control, but inside, they're exhausted. They smile through the burnout. They nod through the panic. They say, "I'm good," through clenched teeth and sleepless nights. It doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in slowly, like rust beneath polished metal. You start to lose touch with what you actually want, because everything becomes about what looks good. You stop trying things you might fail at, because failure has become shame, not growth. You censor your dreams, because they don't fit the polished narrative. This is where the trap tightens. Perfection disconnects you from your body, from your intuition, from others, because real connection requires imperfection. It requires honesty, mess, rawness. But perfection demands performance, and performance leaves no room for intimacy. How can you let someone love you if you're terrified of them seeing the parts you've been told to hide? Many people live in quiet relationships, romantic, platonic, familial, where no one truly sees each other. They play roles, the responsible one, the strong one, the high achiever. But behind closed doors they feel more like actors than participants in their own lives. You were not born to be a character in someone else's expectations. And yet, this is what perfection turns you into. A mirror that reflects what others want to see, never what you actually are. And what happens when a mirror is all you become? You shatter, not visibly, not dramatically, but subtly, quietly. Your laughter becomes less spontaneous. Your creativity shrinks. Your dreams narrow into safer versions of themselves. Soon you find yourself paralyzed by even the smallest decisions. What's the best choice? What will make me look smart? What if I fail? Perfectionism rewires your brain. Psychologist Carol Dweck's research on fixed versus growth mindsets reveals this. Perfectionists often develop a fixed mindset, believing their abilities are static, and that mistakes are threats, not opportunities. Instead of learning from failure, they fear it. Instead of taking risks, they overthink. Instead of evolving, they remain trapped in a brittle identity. And on a cultural level, it's worse. Perfectionism breeds polarization. We create binary worlds. Perfect versus broken, winner versus loser, success versus failure. There's no room for the messy in-between. No room for nuance. No room for evolution. In education, students cheat because getting an A is valued more than actually understanding. In careers, people stay silent when something feels wrong, because speaking up might disrupt the image of being a team player. In social media, we filter out every blemish, every scar, until we no longer recognize our own faces. And yet, we scroll through feeds of perfect lives and wonder, why am I the only one falling apart? You're not. You're just one of the few who can still feel the dissonance. Most have gone numb. Even spirituality isn't safe from this infection. We turn growth into a checklist. Meditate for 20 minutes. Eat clean. Journal gratitude. Stay high vibe. It becomes another race, another performance. And somewhere along the way, the soul gets lost in the structure. Aldous Huxley warned us in Brave New World that the future wouldn't be destroyed by pain, but by comfort. by the numbing repetition of a culture obsessed with image and ease, where real humanity, messy, flawed, unpredictable, is slowly anesthetized. We're living that prophecy, not in chains, but in curated cages. So what's the final cost of chasing perfection? You forget how to be alive. You become efficient but not expressive, liked but not loved, admired but not understood. Your life becomes a museum, well lit, well arranged and empty. But the worst consequence of all, you lose your permission to fail. And without the freedom to fail, there is no freedom to grow, no freedom to love, no freedom to create, no freedom to begin again. You're stuck in a loop, chasing something that was never real in the first place. So pause, breathe, ask yourself this: what parts of you have been buried beneath the pursuit of perfection? What dreams have you silenced because they didn't look impressive? What version of you is waiting to be reclaimed once you stop trying to be someone else? The consequences are real, but so is the way out. If you felt the ache of all this, if this section stung like truth more than theory, then the rebellion has already begun inside you. And now, it's time to name it, to fight back, to tear down the glass walls, because there is a life beyond perfection, and you're about to see what it looks like. Burn the script. That's where it begins. Not with a motivational speech, not with a list of habits or a new morning routine. It begins with a single radical act of defiance. You stop playing the role, you stop curating, you stop apologizing for being messy, you stop seeking applause from rooms you don't even want to be in. Because the rebellion against perfection doesn't look like screaming in protest. It looks like softness. It looks like truth. It looks like saying I don't have it all together, and I'm done pretending I do. That's not weakness. That's war. See, when you break from perfection, you don't become less. You become more. You more alive. But to do that, you have to rewire what you think strength looks like. Strength is not the polished LinkedIn bio. It's admitting when you're lost. It's asking for help when everything in your ego says don't. It's creating art that no one may understand, but that saves you. And here's what they never told you. You are allowed to be seen before you are fully healed. You are allowed to speak even if your voice trembles. You are allowed to start before you are certain. You are allowed to rest without justifying it with burnout. Let that sink in. Now think about this. Every revolutionary from Socrates to Buddha, from James Baldwin to Frida Kahlo, broke the mold not by being perfect, but by being whole, by embracing contradiction, by rejecting the tyranny of image, by telling the truth even when their voice was the only one. That's your lineage. And now it's your turn. But how do you begin? How do you break the spell after years, maybe a lifetime of chasing approval? Start here. 1. Name the inner tyrant. The perfectionist voice in your head is not you. It's a collection of echoes, old teachers, rigid parents, corporate standards, cultural scripts. Give it a name. Literally. Call it the judge, or the phantom, or even the algorithm. Then when it speaks you can say, "Ah, there you are again. Thanks for the opinion. I'm not listening today." This voice thrives in secrecy. Expose it. Laugh at it. Starve it. Reclaim your voice. 2. Create before you're ready. Perfection says, wait until it's flawless. Rebellion says, make something real. Write the messy poem. Record the podcast with your shaky voice. Dance even if you forget the steps. Your work doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. It just has to be honest. Because someone out there is drowning, and they don't need your performance. They need your presence. 3. Practice glorious inconsistency. Perfection demands consistency, predictability, control, but life is made of chaos and curveballs, so let yourself be inconsistent. Change your mind. Feel things fully. Be weird, then wise, then weird again. This doesn't make you unstable. It makes you real. As Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. Break your own patterns. Let your humanity breathe. 4. Build relationships where you can be ugly, not physically, emotionally, existentially, spiritually. Find the spaces where you can say, I'm scared, I don't know, I feel lost today. And instead of advice you receive silence, presence, a nod that says, me too. That's sacred, that's healing, that's rebellion. Because connection kills perfection. Once you are fully seen and still loved, you no longer need to be admired. 5. Learn the art of doing things badly. Cook something and burn it. Write a page of nonsense. Try a new language and butcher it. Do it badly, but joyfully. This is not about mediocrity. It's about liberation. Perfection imprisons your creativity, but play sets it free. Remember this, babies are bad at walking, but they don't quit. They fall, laugh, try again, and they never once think I'm failing at walking. Maybe I'm not meant for this. You were once that free. You can be again. You don't need to be reborn. You just need to return. Return to the you that existed before the shame, before the edits, before the masks. Because beneath the layers of expectations you are still there. Not broken, not missing, just buried. But now you know how to dig. This is your revolution. Not loud, not violent, but true. And with every imperfect step, you reclaim your life. But we are not done yet. One final question remains. One final doorway must open. You've begun to break free. But what lies beyond perfection? What is the truth that perfection was always hiding? The insight so deep, it changes the shape of your soul. Come with me. We're almost there. Now imagine this. You're standing alone in a wide open field. There are no mirrors, no cameras, no watchers, no judges. There is only you, your breath, your heartbeat, the wind brushing past your skin. And in this stillness something ancient stirs in you. Not a thought, not an affirmation, but a remembering. You realize perfection never existed. Not in nature, not in the soul, not even in the gods. We've been chasing a ghost, an illusion, crafted from fear dressed in the language of ambition. A mirage that always shifts when you get closer. And the greatest tragedy, it never loved you back. But what if I told you that your so-called flaws were never mistakes, that your scars are not signs of damage, but symbols of passage, that the broken parts of you are not broken at all, just unfinished sentences in a poem still being written? Here is the ultimate truth. Perfection is the death of possibility. It kills spontaneity. It kills creativity. It kills the sacred chaos that births growth. And the only way to truly live is to stop trying to be perfect and start being fully alive. Let's go deeper. You see, life doesn't want you polished. It wants you present. It doesn't ask you to shine. It asks you to burn. Your rage, your confusion, your wonder, your doubt, all of it, the entire storm. That's where your soul speaks. Do you think the ocean worries about its waves being too much? Do you think the stars apologize for burning too bright? No, they simply are. And you were born with that same wildness, that same sacred unpredictability. But somewhere along the way you were tamed, taught to sit still, to smile more, to shrink, taught that neatness is goodness, that chaos is weakness, that fitting in is survival. And so you buried your questions, you dulled your laughter, you became a digestible version of yourself. But your soul never agreed to this. It has been waiting, not for your perfection, but for your permission. Here's the paradox. The moment you accept your imperfection fully, is the moment you become whole, not flawless. Whole. There's a difference. Flawless means without cracks. Whole means nothing is missing, even the cracks. As the Japanese philosophy of kintsugi teaches, when a bowl breaks, they don't hide the fracture. They fill it with gold. The wound becomes the art. The break becomes the value. Now ask yourself, what if you treated your life the same way? What if your pain isn't a detour, but the very path you're meant to walk? What if your most shameful moments are the chapters that turn your story into a testimony? You weren't meant to live edited. You were meant to live experienced. And here's something deeper still. You are not a self-improvement project. You are a human experience, in motion, a paradox, a contradiction, a masterpiece with missing brushstrokes. So stop waiting to be finished. Stop waiting to arrive. There is no final version of you, only unfolding. You are not here to be admired. You are here to be expressed. Let go of the mirror. Pick up the pen. Tell the truth. Not the one that impresses, the one that liberates. Because at the core of all this, there's one final truth. Perfection was never the goal. Presence was to be here, to be real, to be raw, to feel. So take off the mask. Let your face be seen, not the filtered one, not the perfected one, the one that lives. Let someone love you, not for how you perform but for how you break open and keep choosing to stay. Let your life get messy. Let it be art, not a gallery, but a street mural, painted in tears and laughter and mud and glory. You will lose people when you stop performing, but the ones who stay, they will love you for who you truly are, not for the mask you wore to survive. And that love, that sacred imperfect love, that's the kind that builds empires of the heart. So here, at the end of this journey, you have a choice. You can go back to chasing shadows, fixing every crack, editing every sentence, curating every moment. Or, you can begin again, unfiltered, unpolished, unpolished, ethically whole. Let your life be the rebellion. Let your story be the gold in the fracture. Let your breath be the only proof you need that you are already enough. You have nothing to prove, no image to uphold, no perfection to chase. Just this moment, this breath, this beautiful, broken, breathtaking life. And maybe, just maybe, that's perfect enough. If this truth stirred something deep in you, if this message cracked a wall you've been hiding behind for years, don't let it fade. Share it, sit with it, speak it, and if you haven't already, subscribe to stay connected to messages like this. Not because we're perfect, but because we're in this together. This isn't just content, it's a quiet revolution, and you are not alone anymore.